What's up, people? Josh Chin here, co-founder and CEO at Chronos Agency. Our job is to make your life easier and bring you the best insights in the world of e-commerce and growing direct-to-consumer brands. Today, I'm joined with Joshua Fu, one of our longtime superstars at Chronos, our very own marketing manager, overseeing some really successful brands and having scaled multiple seven-figure brands to eight figures, and we'll talk about the secret sauce behind some of those campaigns and journeys and what it took to find success. And the big theme you come to realize is not as sexy as people might think. It's really just A/B testing and making data-driven decisions. And the only way to make data-driven decisions is to run split tests. And that's going to be the big topic for today. Josh, welcome. Welcome to
Thank
the
you.
channel. Josh, so let's get started. Talk to us about A/B testing. Tell us about what that looks like at scale for an ecom brand at Chronos.
Sure. A/B testing, in particular with email, is just basically a process of us sending out different variations of the same email with the ultimate goal of working out which version that generates the best results for our clients, for the brand, in terms of open rates, click rates, and conversions. Basically finding out which particular element in the email that resonates best with your customers and subscribers. Like
So,
anything can be tested within the email.
so it typically starts with a hypothesis, right?
Yeah.
Some kind of an assumption of what works. So a hypothesis could be, I believe that a longer subject line is going to increase open rates. Unlikely, but as an example.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then what happens next?
Of course, we'll run out different variations. If our hypothesis wins, then of course we'll treat that as the new benchmark to run further tests. If our hypothesis fails, then we'll definitely run more tests and run more different kind of ideas or different elements or variations that we can test on.
And there's a caveat, I believe, around making conclusions around A/B testing. We can't just make a conclusion just because one variation won over the other variation based on one extra conversion, for instance.
Yeah,
And that's called statistical significance, right? Can you talk to us
yeah,
about what that means?
yeah, sure. Statistical
It's a hard,
significance. Yeah.
it's a hard phrase. I know.
So yeah, I mean, when we do run variations, sometimes results get really close to one another. It can be like, 49% versus 51%. That's really close. When that happens, we take a deep dive in the actual number itself instead of the percentages. For example, what the sample size was. If the sample size was a big enough that we can actually say it's a good ratio, then we can actually make a decision, say, okay, maybe with such a big audience, we can conclude the test. And then, in another word, is to have a deeper dive of the actual number of, let's say, if we were testing open rates, we're going to deep dive into actual number of openers. If let's say numbers are really close to one another again, then it's not significant. We can say the test is sort of balanced, and then when that happens, you run more tests. Maybe try out different subject lines that will help open rates, and we try different types of content that could try to get a bit more significant results.
And in other words, statistical significance refers to the idea that the result that we get from a test isn't the outcome of random variation, but instead is likely due to or attributable to a specific cause. In our case, the hypothesis, right?
Yeah,
So what are some examples of? We talked a little bit about subject lines. So
yeah,
that's an easy one. We test subject lines. We're testing for which one generates more attention and
hmm
more opens and more eyeballs, right?
yeah,
What else do you test for in in an email?
yeah. I guess the main thing that we always want to test first is to test open rates, and subject line is one of them. But there are other things we can test to optimize open rates, because ultimately, if we get more openers, in hypothetically speaking, then there's a higher chance of converging because more people are opening the emails. So other things that you can test on are such as sending time. With sending the email in the morning be more beneficial or in the evening. Certain sometimes based on your target audience, it could be a range of from working adults to students to parents. They tend to open emails or check their emails at different times of the day. And sometimes we found some of our clients, they more openers happen in the morning, like 8 a.m. Whereas for some brands that has a heavy target audience who are parents, they tend to check their emails much later at night, like 6 p.m. or maybe like during the dinner period, 8 p.m. and so on. So that's one of the things that we can test on is send time. Um,
So you're saying that there isn't a magical send time that we should be sending emails
no,
to our audience?
not there's not one special time that would fit everybody. So it
Right.
really depends on like who you're selling to, because everyone has a different schedule uh, with them. Yeah.
Are there any examples of successful send time or subject line tests they've conducted recently with one of your brands?
Yeah, we've worked with particularly Truly Beauty, one of a very successful skincare e-commerce brand, and we've tested out
Oh,
sending.
and just a little bit about Truly Beauty,
Yeah,
massive brand, very successful brand that scaled from 7 to 8 figures over just a couple of years of working together, and we've seen them grow really quickly. And owned marketing and lifecycle marketing became a huge part of um, uh, their business. And one of the things that they do really well is in building a really genuine connection and relationship with every single one of their customers. And it shows in the conversations that you see on social media, on organic posts, and even on their TikTok account. They have a massive following on TikTok organically on a branded account, which is fascinating. All right, back to you. Talk to me about the test that you ran for Truly
correct.
Beauty.
We definitely ran a few tests, just to get concrete results. We tested sending out whether in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. I think at first the first results was like when we sent in the afternoon, the conversions, both open rates and conversions were higher than the other two. I think by maybe 1.5 to 2 times more. But then when the brand grew, of course the sample size becomes bigger, 2, 3 times more. There's a different set of audience already since it's much larger. We found that sending the emails in the morning now generate even higher open rates, maybe a bit 1 or 2 times more as well than when we were sending in the afternoon. So I guess it also puts in perspective, when your brand grows, things
Hmm.
change as well, and you have to start retesting things that you thought you already know, but no,
Yeah.
things change, times change. So that's what happened with Truly Beauty in particular. Yeah.
And I presume that over time we form a better understanding of each segment of audiences. For example, people who spend a lot of money tend to open their emails at this time, and people who are just one-time buyers for like once
Yeah.
every 90 days or 180 days tend to open at this time. And depending on those segments, you tend to form kind of like different profiles of what best suits those segments. Um, what other aspects of email do you find most critical that people tend to miss out on that they should be testing more of?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess this is one quite surprising, I would say. Even when I started, I didn't thought it would be something that we could test, which is actually sender's name, like who we're sending the email from. I think
Interesting.
sometimes brand like to be more personal. I think that's the basic assumption. You want to seem more personal to your audience, to your customers. So you create a persona for your email and say, let's say the email is coming from, let's say Josh Chin from Chronos Agency, and then that's like the main tag. But then when we tested it out, um, using the personal name versus using a transactional name, for example, maybe the brand's email address. And then somehow the brand's email address generated a much higher open rate, like maybe 2 times more even than a persona name, which was quite surprising. And then when we tried it out with a few other brands, and that seemed to be the case,
Right.
that we got more significant results for using the the email address over the persona name. So
So,
that's something that it's worth testing out. Yeah.
kind of like signing a sender's name saying the sent by the Udi versus Davy at the Udi.
Yeah,
Is that how?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So we can like info at udi.com versus a name by Udi.
Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think people respond better to a brand versus a name? When I guess my first instinct is that people are going to respond to a person's name and open that email much more frequently than just a brand in the
Mm-hmm.
sender's name. But
Yeah,
it seems
I
like
guess,
our
yeah.
results are opposite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it's my assumption is, a name can sound quite random at times when you open emails. You know, especially with these days when there's a lot of scam emails out there, it can be coming from anybody and you're not sure who it is. Maybe when we put like a specific brand there, like with the brand's email address, I think it seems more so it gives validation to the email a bit more what do you call it? Uh, it looks more
Credible?
yeah, credibility,
Oh,
yeah,
credible.
to
Yeah.
the email. Yeah.
So it sounds like the brand recall and familiarity of with the brand name is much more important in an email, in a
Mm-hmm.
marketing email versus a name that people can relate to.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is I remember testing that exact same test, right? Having a persona's name signing off on the email on the sender's name versus just the brand a brand name, and we done this for back in 2017, 2018 on drop shipping clients,
Yeah.
drop shipping stores, and the persona name won most of the time. And I think on hindsight, what's clear is now that having brand equity, like brand recall,
Yeah.
is much more important today because now then it kind of built into these things where your emails perform a lot better. People tend to open your emails a lot more because they recognize your
Mhm.
brand name and they've seen your ads and they've seen your products and they've seen your site and all that stuff.
I
Which
guess a sense of familiarity that customers enjoy.
now let's look at the email itself. If you kind of break down the email internally, what's top three for you? What's top three in your tests?
Top three would be, I think, first the copy length. Would you want it to be short or long? And
Mm-hmm.
then the images that you use. What sort of images resonate better with your customers? Would it be product images or lifestyle model images? And lastly would be the call to action button. I think that's would be your most important since that would be the one that you want customers to click on to be redirected to your website or any other platforms. So these few copy, images, and CTA button.
So copy the hero image and then the
Hmm.
CTA button. Uh,
Yeah,
let's talk about the image.
yeah,
Now, we used to think that graphics isn't all that important in an email, but more and more so, we've come to realize that having a nicely designed email, a well designed and well structured email
yeah,
is extremely important. In the entirety of the email program, you need well designed emails to build trust and build credibility over a certain period of time
yeah,
for results to be significant and revenue to be generated. So, with a person's face versus product images,
yeah.
what have you seen? What's a typical trend? Does
It's
one
it's
work better
been
than the other, or?
it's been mixed reactions, but based on industry base, for example, we have a skincare client like surely you would think like having a model there works better, if you see the product in action. When we tested it out, it seems like if we feature the main product itself, that
Hmm.
those tend to get a higher click rate and a higher conversion rate. I would think because the main thing about Truly is how that product looks like, the colors, the swirls, and how their packaging is. So I guess that's the most attractive point to the brand. So that's what we focus more on after we did the test to really focus more on how the product looks like. How do we arrange the product in the email and how do we can effectively use that product image to uh, effectively give out the information about the product instead of using models or lifestyle images.
And one of the interesting things around email and an opportunity here is that on ads you cannot show before after images, right? That's not allowed. That goes against policy, and
Yeah.
You can get it filtered out. But with emails, you can do exactly that. You can show
Mm-hmm.
before after shoots, and it makes for a really convenient pitch and graphic design for your
Yeah.
emails, especially if
It's
your product kind of drives some kind of a visible transformation. So this is great for products that are, for instance, hair removal or whitening. You can see a before and after kind of a product. That's a great idea to test out.
yeah.
Also, by the way, when it comes to A/B testing,
Yeah.
what are some of the common mistakes that people make?
Okay. Got it. Some of the common pitfalls or mistakes that people would make is that they don't have a common ground in email.
Okay,
With A/B test is that you're only supposed to be testing a particular element in the email. So you only change one variable. But sometimes some people tend to forget that and then they want to change up the email a lot, which makes it two very different emails. And hence when that happens, it becomes some sort of like an unfair test because you don't know what the actual
cause.
element, yeah, the actual cost of like the increase of in numbers or the decrease in numbers is. It could be the one thing you're supposed to test, or it could be the other things that you randomly changed around.
That's a massive one, and that's
Yeah.
why it's so important to keep track of your initial hypothesis, what you intend to test for, the variations and what is different in those variations, and recording the results that come
Yeah.
from those variations, and then making a conclusion, making a decision on what won, or do you have to create a second test to retest the hypothesis. That's amazing. It's awesome. Thank you for joining me, Josh. And for you guys listening, if you are interested to learn more about Chronos Agency and what we do, and potentially find some additional money that may be left on the table with lifecycle marketing, you can create a lot more profits and reinvest all that profits back into growth and acquisition. The game in e-commerce today is all about customer lifetime value, and optimizing that journey with your customer is going to make or break your e-commerce business. So book a strategy call today. Link, as usual, in the description below, or you can go to chronos.agency, that's chronos.agency, to find out more. Thanks, and see you guys on the next one.